Well, the 2024 offseason has arrived. It is officially here for the 76ers after they were bounced by the Knicks. And let's just put it how it is. You know, this is going to be the most monumental offseason ever. The decisions, the things that happen will literally determine the next 5 years of this franchise. And Daryl Morey finally has full flexibility to build an entire roster around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Those guys are going to be most likely the only two guys on the roster. So, you know, we will have our draft coverage, our free agency stuff. We'll talk about everything that happens with this team. Once again, I appreciate everybody who tapped in during the season, but the OGs know that the coverage never stops in the offseason. And, you know, the Sixers go down last night. It was just really a tough one. Like, the pain and the disappointment have certainly not gone away just yet. And, you know, it's tough. I see everybody congratulating the Sixers and they played a great series. Yeah, they did, but it sucks. Like, one thing goes the other way and maybe there's a game 7 tomorrow night. And, you know, it's just tough seeing them go out in the first round and get eliminated again. So hopefully that is motivation towards what they do going forward. And we'll talk about it all. And of course, on the first day of the offseason, as always, you know, the big dogs step in, right? There's players, there's agent plays, there's everything. And we're hearing all kinds of crazy rumors, all kinds of big names that the Sixers will be interested in. And quite frankly, they are the dark horse of this offseason because they have the cap space. They have the roster spots. But now it's, you know, how do you place the pieces? How do you put together the puzzle? And I think it'll be very interesting to see. So we will get into it all. And I want to know from Sixer Nation, honestly, what do you think they should do? Should they go out and get a third star, another big name? Should they get a bunch of role players? What will they do in the draft? Give me your thoughts, just preliminary, down below. But before we do that, I do have to let you know that this video is sponsored by Mando. Mando has literally changed the way that I look at deodorants. And right now, new customers can get $5 off of the Mando starter pack by using my code PhillyTake5 at shopmando.com. This deodorant was created by a doctor who noticed how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed, and it was developed by the founders of Lumi and is known for its long-lasting 72-hour odor control, which it says right here on the cap that actually stops odor before it begins. You can use it anywhere, right? You can use it under the arms, the package, the feet, the back, whatever. You can use this bad boy anywhere. And when they first reached out, you know, I thought, okay, same old, right? You're going to promise me all these things that doesn't work. And for somebody that has problems with sweating, it's not going to do anything. Well, this actually changed my perspective. This is the best deodorant that I've ever used. It smells amazing. This is the Mount Fuji one, which is actually my favorite. They actually did clinical trials and found that after 12 hours of taking a shower, the average man's odor level was a 0 out of 10 when they used Mando. On average, the average man's odor level is a 5 out of 10. So this thing just went above and beyond. It's the first deodorant, in my opinion, to ever actually live up to the promises that are made. So once again, new customers can get $5 off of the Mando starter pack by using my code PhillyTake5 at shopmando.com. All right, man, let's jump into it. So we know that the 76ers have a big task ahead of them. And what does RB think they should do? Well, I think they need to figure out the best fitting puzzle for Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. One thing I've been reflecting on today is how nice it is, right? Joel even hinted at it last night. How nice it is, the continuity factor of having a co-star that Joel Embiid can actually build with for the next several years. I know people want to get Embiid out of here and they don't want him anymore. It's ridiculous, right? Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey have formed a great chemistry and they are actually going to build together, unlike other co-stars who have left, right? And now they actually get to develop that, but they need to add on the margins. They need to do the little things as a team. I think that's one reason why the New York Knicks were, again, so effective is because, you know, they were relentless in rebounding, in defending on the perimeter. They just had guys that were able to fulfill roles. And I think the Sixers got a much better idea of what that looks like this year with the Kelly Oubres of the world, right? With the Nico Batums. Like, you need guys like that on your roster to win a championship. The Sixers just didn't have enough overall. And one reason, as we know, is Tobias Harris, who went out completely sad with 0 points last night in 29 minutes. And it's still frustrating, right? Like, the pain, again, is just still lying there with what could have been, and you could have won that series. But of course, everybody's eyes are going to look at the big names, the stars, because that's what Daryl Morey has historically done. I do not think that would be the wisest decision, and I will tell you why. But first and foremost, we get a report this morning from Brian Windhorst, and he says the Sixers are expected to monitor Jimmy Butler's situation with the Miami Heat. Do the Sixers want to run it back, maybe a few years too late, and bring Jimmy back into the equation? We also get this from David Aldridge. He says the Butler era in Miami could be nearing a tipping point. I do think, based on where Miami's at and the fact that they have, had their couple chances, maybe they view it with Butler getting older as like, all right, if we move on from him, maybe we can get a little bit younger and try to go in a different direction, especially with, Butler getting hurt and them getting out of the playoffs yet again. We also get this report from Windy, and he says that the Sixers are going to have a list of big names because, again, they're going to have a ton of cap space. And he says that they could look at Paul George and the Sixers will offer him a max contract, which I think is a huge mistake, especially with Paul George at 34 years old. You're asking yourself for another Tobias Harris situation. But anyway, Windy also says that two other names to watch are Jimmy Butler and Brandon Ingram, who obviously, didn't mesh that well at the end there with the Pelicans in that run. And, he was benched in the fourth quarter of that one game, and not saying that, he can't continue to build there and be part of that trio, but sometimes it does look a little bit awkward in terms of the fit with Brandon Ingram. So could the Sixers, now acquire the guy that they probably should have drafted over Ben Simmons? That's another thing to look out for. Offseason outlook, projected $60 million cap space, 2 draft picks, 16 and 41, and Tyrese Maxey, a restricted free agent who will likely get a max extension. Bobby Marks talked about this as well. And he says, here's the offseason in Philly, the most important in franchise history. I could not agree more. His projected cap space, $55 million. Obviously, with the whole Paul Reed thing, after the Sixers got bounced in the first round, which Danny Ainge probably never thought would happen. But Paul Reed is a $7.7 million non-guarantee now that the Sixers did not make the second round. And if Philly waives their non-guaranteed contracts and trade their first, the max room they could have is $65 million. But, obviously they're going to need to finally hit in the draft. I think that's one area that this team has constantly been lackluster in. And that's a part of the reason why they can't succeed, right? I mean, you have a couple years where they had 3 first-round picks and none of those guys were still in the roster. Only 2 guys are still in the roster. I put a tweet out last night about the process as a whole, and a lot of people are disagreeing, saying that it was successful because you got Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Quite frankly, I'm seeing too many people, congratulating this team and, we have what we need now going forward. But let's be honest, this last decade has been very disappointing. It's been a failure. It's time to turn the page, man. It's time to make this team a successful winner. And being a first-round exit, it doesn't feel like you are close to that. When it comes to the 76ers, man, I think they need to find the right glue pieces. I think maybe a couple guys that played here this year could be re-signed. I'm a little worried about Kelly Oubre getting a lot of money elsewhere because, man, did he play exceptional. And, yeah, there were some games in this series where he did not show up. But Kelly's the ultimate role player. He's the ultimate winner. He understands Philly. For once, there were guys last night actually preaching to come back to Philly. Kelly Oubre was one of them. Cameron Payne, Buddy Hield, even Batum. Joel went up to Batum and was like, you're coming back. Of course, he didn't agree to that on the spot. But, a lot of these guys want to be back. And I think that just goes to show the culture that Nick Nurse is building here. And I think with Nurse, Maxey, and Embiid, you're definitely stepping in the right direction. But we always knew that this was going to be a gap year. Question is, now with all the pressure on, what will Daryl Morey do? I think even though he signed an extension, all the pressure is on right now. We saw the offseason he had last year. This is the one where there are no excuses. He has to get it done right now. And I think you need to look at the areas of your team that you were lacking this year. One, which you've been lacking in for about 5 to 10 years, and that's rebounding. Get Tobias out of here. Get a pure dog of a rebounder, a guy who can help Joel Embiid defend, especially in the paint. I think that's the number one need on this team. And I think you're going to need sharpshooters. I think you're going to need a couple guys that can do everything. The jack of all trades. For example, the Josh Harts of the world who are 6'4" and can grab 15 rebounds in a game. You need those type of guys to win. And the Sixers are going to have to find a couple diamonds in the roughs like they did with Kelly Oubre this year. You know, maybe they try to bring back Cameron Payne. I thought he was ready for the moment. Who knows how much money he'll get? Will Kyle Lowry be back? I don't think so. Buddy Hield's probably one of the most interesting, right? You have his bird rights, but do you want to take Buddy back? He finally came alive in game 6, but he was nowhere to be found for the likes of 3 months. So I think all these decisions are interesting. As it relates to the stars, though, if they could get PG, but say, you know, get Lauri Markkanen as well, right? And ask PG to take a little bit of a cut and maybe a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal with an option, that would be completely different. You don't want to give one of these guys a 4-year max. You don't want to give Jimmy Butler a 4-year max, even though I would really be interested to see Maxey, Butler, and Embiid together. You know, you can't make that mistake again. You can't go down that road. You have to find value-added pieces, value-added contracts. And like I said, you know, some of these vets per Tim Bontemps could return next year. DeAnthony Melton, I don't know. That one is certainly up in the air. But apparently, another report that came out, the Sixers were actually going to go for Drew Holiday this offseason, but until he signed with Boston again, there were designs on pursuing Drew Holiday, but he signed an extension. The same holds true for Paul George and OG Anunoby, though both are expected to remain with their current team. So there's not much of a market, and it sucks. It's so Philly that, you know, the 1 year we have all this cap space, there's going to be no free agents except LeBron James, right? Darvin Ham got fired. Maybe they get LeBron? I don't know, man. You're taking a big risk. Do they trade for KD? Do they trade for Brandon Ingram? Look, I'm fine with getting one of these big names, but that does not mean you can neglect the rest of the team. We just saw that with the Phoenix Suns. You have to build out the rest of your squad. You need to get younger, more athletic. You need athletic wings, and you're going to need guys who can show up in the big moment. They need guys who know how to win, and they need more Nick Nurse type of guys. So we will, I guess, see how it plays out. It's going to be a very, very interesting offseason. But of course, you know, as it always goes, you know, a lot of rumors coming out, and we have a lot of time to talk about it. And the Sixers have a pretty good draft pick this year as well. So they need to load up on some pieces and finally, for once, construct the correct roster around Joel Embiid and around Tyrese Maxey. So it all lies in your court, Daryl Morey. It's now or never. Biggest offseason of all time. What will the Sixers do? Give me your thoughts down below. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.